I think the most powerful learning comes from having unexpected experiences.
Make everything a teaching moment if need be.
Tell me where is the road I can call my own.
And it's how you deal with the challenges that come your way that make all the difference in life.
It's all about what you bring to the table.
I don't want to hear why things can't get done. I want to hear how we're going to do it.
Mental toughness is a big thing.
Honesty, integrity, hard work.
Working collaboratively with others.
Because everything you do reflects on the team.
Incorporate everyone's cultures and put it together and make it one.
Make sure that you're in a community that pushes you and makes you to be your best. I think that's what builds you as a person. That's what builds a community like Providence.
Nothing on earth happens by chance. It's all part of God's divine providence.
Providence, a city, a college, a theological concept of a divine provider, offering all that is possible to all who have lived or will live. An existential chain of seemingly random occurrences, rarely discerned in real time.
I think for many people, Providence is something you see more in retrospect than you do when it's actually happening. Because you don't know sometimes the pivotal moment of your life was really the hand of God.
But how much of a hand? How much of a help? If all is provided, then what is our purpose? What is our calling?
We have to work hard. You know, there's an old adage, just pray as if everything depends upon God and act as if everything depends upon you. You know, God wants us to be active agents, free active agents. But at the same time, we have to know that I'm not the master of the universe. I'm only the president of the college.
College willed into existence a century earlier through the collaborative efforts of the Rhode Island Catholic community and two very determined priests, Father Matthew Harkins, Bishop of Providence, and Father James Raymond Marr, leader of the Eastern Province of Dominican Friars. Their dream was to build a school of higher learning to better educate and thus improve the lives of a working-class pool of young men, many of them immigrants or children of immigrants, unable to gain acceptance into other area colleges and universities because of discriminatory admittance quotas. Money was raised, mostly small donations from people of modest means, and in May of 1918, ground was broken for the first permanent structure on campus. A grand four-story building of Gothic Revival design, which came to be known as Harkins Hall. 16 months later, in September of 1919, Providence College officially began its educational mission with 71 students and 9 Dominican faculty members, an all-male Catholic college open to qualified students of every religion, or no religion. The words of its original charter stating that, quote, "No person shall be refused admission, nor shall any person be denied any of the privileges, honors, or degrees in said college on account of the religious opinion he may entertain," end quote. That bold declaration of inclusivity clashes with photographic images of an era in American history when racial and ethnic exclusion was the norm. But the founders' pledge was sincere, the promise kept, as witnessed a century later.
I'm not Catholic myself, but it's comforting to know that, you know, my belief and my faith and my ideas or my love of music or whatever is not only accepted, but it's kind of rewarded.
An opinion shared by esteemed Rhode Island lawyer and judge Howard Lipsey, PC class of 1957, and former student body president, his Jewish faith recognized and supported by the Dominican friar community.
And it was 1953, and there were about 5 of us who were going to go to Providence College and register for freshman week, and we had a problem because the highest Jewish holiday is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And that was registration day at Providence College. I said, we can't go. We just can't go. So what should we do? We went up to see the dean of freshmen, Father Halton. I'll never forget his name. Told him the problem. I said, Father, we can't come.
The integrity of true belief, honored by an open-minded Dominican who replied,
Don't worry about it. You go to your synagogue. It's a high holy day. I understand that. And I will make sure I personally register each one of you. And he did. And that was my opening to Providence College.
The only college in North America administered by Dominican friars, the Order of Preachers. Preachers who are also scientists, business experts, authors, psychologists, artists, philosophers, theologians, historians, and much more. An intellectual force 8 centuries in the making, dating back to some of the greatest thinkers in world history. Albertus Magnus, Thomas Aquinas, and the Dominican Order's founder, Dominic de Guzman.
He went marching across half of Europe to talk to people and ran into somebody who was from a different corner of the religious world, and he spent all night listening to that person, in dialogue with that person, talking with that person, understanding their view. So it comes back to this notion of dialogue. So for me, it's the order of preachers, but it's really the order of listeners.
An invaluable attribute given the primal human urge to command a following, sway opinions, exert control, often with bad intent, as the world has clearly witnessed during the century of Providence College's existence. There will always be those who cloak evil in the seductive fabric of misleading language. Who will respond with reason? Who will deliberate in a calmly rational manner? Who will have the vision and strength of character to alter, modify, or reform their position when the new truths are discovered?
Well, how are you?
William Haas is a philosopher, theologian, author, and artist. Before asking for and receiving papal approval to leave the priesthood, he was Father William Haas, Dominican friar, and from 1965 to 1971, president of Providence College.
I've always believed that those periods of change and ferment are fruitful if you understand them, and they're disastrous if you don't. And when you suppress change, you actually suppress some part of the vitality of the truth.
At the beginning of Father Haas's presidential tenure, Providence College was still all-male, still yoked to the rigid cultural mores of an earlier, more ordered era, when classroom dress codes and grooming standards dictated coats and ties, clean-shaven faces, and short hair. But the cultural ground was shifting, the times indeed changing. Richard Grace, in his first year as a PC history teacher, felt those initial tremors.
It was as if there were plates changing in the earth, and the old balance that you assumed on one day was no longer there on another day.
By the late 1960s, the nation was in turmoil, and so were college campuses, roiled by the assassinations, the riots, the growing clamor for equal justice, personal freedom, and a more acceptable explanation for the escalating military involvement in Vietnam, where in 1968 alone, more than 16,800 Americans lost their lives.
The Vietnam War was, to me, a scandalous situation, and I was public about that, and I had even gone down to Washington, talked to senators and so on.
Father Haas had seen too many of his own march off, some voluntarily, and others, like PC hockey player Jim Murphy, drafted into combat because of a grade point average a decimal point or two below the government-mandated baseline.
I was told to be in the military. I was doing something for my country.
Right. Were you patriotic?
I was just told to do it.
Rising levels of anti-war sentiment turned college campuses into testing grounds for the concepts of civil discourse, rationality, and logic. The essence of Dominican life put into action when an evening phone call roused Father Haas.
You got to come down to River Avenue. There's a bunch of students lying in the road, blocking traffic. Went down there, and there's about 20 guys lying in River Avenue, and the traffic is backed up. And the people in the cars are getting furiously mad, and they're ready to beat the heck out of these stupid kids. And the cops are standing there wondering what they're supposed to do, because the cops couldn't handle that crowd of people. So I say to myself, well, I've never learned anything about this in the Summa Theologica of St. Thomas. So I kneeled down and I talked to a couple of kids, and I said, look, you proved your point. I agree with you. Get up and walk away, and you won. Stay there, and somebody will get hurt, and they'll convince the people who hate you to hate you more, and you won't convince anybody of anything. Thank God they got up and walked away.
By the time U.S. troops were pulled out of Vietnam in August of 1973, the death toll had climbed to more than 58,000 Americans and over 1 million Vietnamese. Jim Murphy survived, but his intensely violent experiences in the jungle left him adrift and unmotivated, until his former hockey coach, Lou Lamorello, suddenly appeared with a scholarship offer.
I remember Jimmy. I know the traumatic experiences he was going through because of the injuries he had, but I also knew the competitor he was, and that all you had to do was challenge him a little and, get him, and, he responded as just like I thought he would.
Murphy reclaimed his life, co-captaining the hockey team his senior year, then graduating with honors before embarking on a 35-year vocation as an influential teacher and administrator in the Rhode Island school system. Divine Providence interceding to rescue a war-damaged young man.
When I came home, I had to put a pistol under my pillow because there was nobody on watch. And I said, oh my God, somebody's going to come in through the doors. They're going to come in through the closets.
Yeah.
So...
Some people don't recover from that.
Yeah, well, then maybe my PC training, maybe I'm thinking that too. Religion, philosophy, Plato, Aristotle, and all that stuff, maybe that subconsciously helped me get through the tough times.
It was indeed a difficult era, but through dialogue, faith, and cooperation, Father Haas, his fellow Dominicans, faculty members, and administrative staff were able to keep the Providence College community from being ripped apart, while at the same time, they were busy tearing apart the school's antiquated system of governance. For the first time in PC history, a layman, Paul Thompson, was made Vice President of Academic Affairs, putting him in charge of the curriculum, which was significantly strengthened, eventually leading to the development of the Western Civilization program. A newly tenured faculty was given greater independence and the power of a senate, making it easier to recruit more highly qualified professors and students, including, in 1971, the first undergraduate class of female students. The decision to go co-ed made late in Father Haas's administration and welcomed into reality by new president, Father Thomas Peterson. Ann Manchester Molak, PC's special assistant to the current president, Father Shanley, was one of those trailblazing women.
I was in that first class, and there were maybe 280 of us. I had come from an all-girls Catholic high school, so it was a very different environment to walk into a classroom and be, next to maybe one other woman in the classroom, or be the sole woman in the classroom.
Longtime Providence College Dean of Freshmen, Dr. Wanda Ingram, also experienced some of that loneliness, along with a small dose of old-school resistance.
I can remember going into one class, and he was a priest, and I'm being filmed, but it was a priest, and the first thing out of his mouth was, the school's gone co-ed, I'm not happy about it. And I looked around at some of the guys who I'd already made friends with and said, so what are we supposed to do now?
What they did was what they had already done to gain acceptance into Providence College. They excelled in the classroom, proving their intellectual worth and lifting everybody else by their example, as noted by Father John Peterson, longtime administrator and teacher, and younger brother of former PC president, Father Thomas Peterson.
Everything became better Classes became better. The general manner and demeanor of the men on the campus became better.
The changing human dynamic coincided with the opening of new facilities. Phillips Memorial Library, McVinney Hall, the Slavin Center, and then Schneider Arena. It was a wondrous period in the school's history, a triumphant time of extraordinary growth, influence, and rising degrees of excellence, academically, athletically. Father Thomas Peterson could not have been happier. PC was making news, nationally, internationally, and the news was good. Then, the fire.
I just got the chills when you mentioned that because I remember getting the call at 3 or 4 in the morning.
That was the most tragic thing that has ever happened to us.
And the great question was, why did God let this happen? And nobody had a good answer.
In the early morning hours of December 13th, 1977, a fire broke out on the 4th floor of Aquinas Hall. 10 women died, more than a dozen others injured from burns and smoke inhalation.
I still find it hard to talk about it. Because I was a student at the time, and I remember the night vividly. And I remember the incredible sadness that just descended on the campus. And I remember the next day, they canceled classes and brought us to alumni. And Father Peterson said the Mass and preached. And I don't remember what he said. But I remember sitting there thinking, somehow we're going to get through this, that all is not lost.
A young Brian Shanley, forever changed by the event and the response.
Father Peterson moved into Aquinas just to be there. And some of the other Dominicans were just magnificent.
I think it forced everybody to think about what family meant. Father Neely was one of the people. Father Neely was fire chaplain. He went up to the 4th floor and carried a young woman out. Susan couldn't come back to school for quite a while. And when she came back, I was on the walk between Harkins and the library when she came up the walk and Father Neely came down. They'd never met. And it was such a reunion of the man who had, pulled her out. There was a good chance she would have died from smoke inhalation, not from burns, but from smoke, if he hadn't gotten her out. And to be witness to that is, so I could lead you to the spot.
Renewal, rebirth, resurrection. Changes and challenges faced and surmounted by a century of Dominican leaders tied together by their fervent faith in a theology based on resurrection. Casey, Noon, McCarthy, Dillon, Foley, Slavin, Dorr, Haas, Peterson, Cunningham, Smith, Shanley. Their collective guidance and example, backed and strengthened by administrators, professors, coaches, and students, daring to venture further, stand taller, set their sights higher. It was April 11th, 2015. The NCAA Finals in Boston's TD Garden, where the sellout crowd had just seen the Friars tie the score 3-3 against a favored Boston University team. No Providence College men's sports team had ever won a national championship. Then, with just under 7 minutes left in the game, with a 1-goal lead and the clock slowly ticking down, Providence College Athletic Director Bob Driscoll, the architect of a resurgent Friar athletic program, was so overcome by the emotional pressure that he could not bear to watch.
I didn't deal with it well. I literally left the ice and went into the bathroom and started praying and meditating, honest, because I knew how important this was.
Oxenden shot, save, rebound, save by Gillies, and cleared out!
And I literally just sat there and I became very calm because I actually knew in my head we were going to win the game.
Little Rhodey, big man on campus!
It was the most surreal feeling in sport, and it still feels that way. It feels like a dream. Everybody feels the sense of pride and feels ownership of it, because it really is the culmination of everybody who came before.
It would be impossible to list all the significant moments through the years and the decades of athletic success.
Providence College has always had athletic teams. And through the years, for a small school, we've produced an inordinate number of top-flight athletes. And especially, I think, since the 50s. The 50s and 60s is where PC kind of got on the map.
Before the construction of Alumni Hall in 1955, PC basketball games were played in Harkins Hall and then local high school gyms. The addition of Alumni Hall coincided with the hiring of basketball coach Joe Mullaney and the recruitment of skilled players like Lenny Wilkins, Jim Hadnot, Ray Flynn, and Vinnie Ernst, and John Thompson, a combination of talent that would lead the Friars to the pinnacle of college basketball. New York City's National Invitation Tournament, the NIT, then the premier showcase for the best teams in the country. The Friars won the NIT in 1961 and 1963, but the underlying story of more import was the continued presence of African-American players on PC rosters. A noteworthy inclusion at a time when many top programs purposefully kept black players off their teams. The Friars were early pioneers, their integrated sports lineups dating back to the early 1930s. 3 decades later, Lenny Wilkins became PC's first black player to gain All-America status, followed in the mid-60s by Jimmy Walker, another All-America selection and the first Providence College player selected as the top pick in the NBA draft. Through the decades, more great players followed, black and white, teaming up to show how a small Catholic college, from the smallest state in the Union, could take it to the big guys in a big way.
Donovan for 3.
I've never seen such enthusiasm for college basketball.
Players of differing styles and diverse backgrounds blending together in spectacular fashion, especially during the early 70s when the Friars advanced to the Final Four, led by Kevin Stakem and 2 very different Rhode Islanders, Marvin Barnes of South Providence and Ernie DiGregorio of North Providence.
In those days, you had a lot of, race problems where a lot of black people didn't like white people, a lot of white people didn't like black people. But Marvin and I never looked at that. We were friends and we were teammates, and that's why we were so successful.
I came out of a ghetto, and I was black prejudiced. All I thought about was black power, black this, black that. Providence College taught me to love people for who people are.
A sociological ideal that still requires constant emphasis through example, behavior, and the rewards that come when athletes work and sacrifice together.
The championships are nice, but if you talk to Father Shanley or anybody who actually supports it, it's about we're using sport to educate our student athletes to be better human beings.
Talented, competitive, tough, humble, respectful, winners.
You know, I want them opening doors for people. I want them saying please and thank you. I want them being a normal student, you know, because they are a normal student that gets an unbelievable opportunity to represent their school.
In his 30-plus years as director of cross-country and track at Providence College, Ray Tracy, a native of Ireland and outstanding PC runner in his own right, has left an unparalleled mark on a sport that has seen over 60 of his athletes earn All-America status, 7 of them winning NCAA individual titles, and a dozen competing in the Olympics. His women's cross-country team has won 2 NCAA titles, the last in 2013. Through it all, he has insisted that his elite, world-class runners embrace campus life with the humble air of an everyday person.
That's the best part of the whole thing, you know, and stuff, that you grow into being just a Providence College student, not just somebody from New Zealand or Ireland or England, wherever you're from. You just become a regular Providence College student.
2-time NCAA individual champion Emily Sisson enjoyed blending into a Friar family, always looking out for its own.
I think I told this story a couple weeks ago about how I was wearing a Providence hoodie and getting on a plane, and the pilot came up to me and he was like, "Oh, I'm the class of '78," and gave me a little fist bump. Just that Friar pride. It's pretty cool.
Friar pride, boosted by athletic success and the media attention that goes with winning. The bigger the stage, the bigger the story.
Providence would be a great school, but it'd be a regional school. We're a national, if not international school, because of the profile we get by being on national television, watched by millions and millions of people. So I think a lot of what you see happening on campus with the construction and the enrollment and the numbers we're hitting, a lot of it has to do with, I think, the profile of successful athletic programs.
The achievements of one inspiring others to raise their games. A triumphant run to the Final Four by the men's soccer team. Uplifted hopes supported by upgraded facilities. The renovated Schneider Arena and Alumni Hall. New fields and stadiums for softball, soccer and lacrosse, field hockey and intramurals, track and cross country. All of it impressive, and all of it misplaced if the emphasis on athletic performance overshadows the quest for intellectual growth.
The whole purpose of college athletics for me is education. I think you learn things about life and yourself when you play a sport that, together with what you get in the classroom, makes you a better human being. And that's why athletics is important to me. It's for education.
We have the talent to do anything you want to do. We have the talent to do it, but it's about our work.
Teaching moments in the athletic arenas, in the classrooms, everywhere, all the time.
You can't be a sometime person. You have to be an everyday person. You got to be an everyday player, because when you grow up, you need to be an everyday dad, an everyday supporter, an everyday spouse. When we recruit kids, the last thing we talk about is basketball. The life skills of what you're going to learn coming to Providence College. I think Providence College is a place that has helped people think, thrive, and achieve.
You learn a lot of life lessons here.
Lessons best learned through struggle.
It's got to be hard. It's got to be hard. You know, some of those exercises are good for their muscles. Like the wheelbarrows are great for shoulder stability, but they're selected more because they are hard. You know, you're teaching them that you got to power through hard. You got to be tough. You have to keep working.
And it seems miserable. And then at the end of the day, they walk out of there and their head is actually held a lot higher than they can even imagine. They did it. They had no clue they could do that, but they do it.
Coaches inspiring their players to one day inspire others in sports or any other calling. Lou Lamoriello is a highly esteemed National Hockey League Hall of Fame executive whose teams have won multiple Stanley Cups, as well as a World Cup.
Lou is one of the finest men I have ever met in my life.
After starring in hockey and baseball as a PC student, Lou Lamoriello moved into coaching. taking command of the varsity hockey team at the age of 26. His manner was exacting, his rules uncompromising when it came to effort, discipline, and dutiful obedience to academic responsibilities.
Do you think you were a tough coach when we were playing for you?
I would rather look at it as a fair coach, but if tough's the word, when you instill discipline and hold people accountable, yes.
How important is it to hold people accountable?
As important as anything in life.
In his 15 years as head coach, Lou Lamoriello transformed the PC hockey program into a national power. Then, as athletic director, he helped raise the fortunes of Friar basketball by hiring Rick Pitino, who quickly led the PC squad to the school's second Final Four appearance. Team victories, record-breaking performances, the rising number of Friar athletes excelling in the professional ranks, quantifiable displays of excellence for all the world to see. But what about the many moments that hardly anybody sees? The moments that can't be measured or forgotten. In March of 1985, the PC hockey team was playing an NCAA tournament game in Detroit when a commotion occurred in the stands behind the Friar bench. John Sullivan, the father of Tim and Terry Sullivan, players on that team, had suddenly lost consciousness. Tim was on the ice at the time.
As he looked up into the stands to see what the commotion was for, it was his father being taken out by the EMS people. He had a heart attack right in the arena. And so when things settled down a bit, Lou came down into the locker room, and of course you can imagine the woe and the inability to say things. And he said to me, "You go with Mary," which is John's wife, in the ambulance, "and I'll talk to the team." And he put me with Mary in the back of the EMS van, and he went into the locker room. And what he did in that locker room was what I, with a collar around my neck or a habit on my body, should be doing. There was a big family of Sullivans. I think there might have been 9 or 10 of them. And he made a telephone call to each one except the hockey player on the ice. And he called them and broke the news that their father had died suddenly. And then this was all done with quarters then. You didn't have a cell phone or any of these other things. And when he finished making the call to each of the children in the family, and I think there were 9, but I could be wrong on the number, then he started calling back the older ones and saying, "This one's going to be fine. You better call her. She's a mess."
Who does that?
Who does that?
Providence College people do that.
Some of the stories I've had of parents who have felt so supported in dealing with the loss of a child because PC is a family and we embrace them. And when you see, as I've been to too many funerals, but when you see 100 kids from Providence College make a 4-hour trip to go to a young man's funeral, and unfortunately it happened last year. And we had buses of kids. We didn't tell them to go. They went. And the parents were just so moved by all the support that they had from PC. It just helped them to get through. And that's, to come back to what are the intangibles of Providence College, it's busloads of kids going to a funeral.
Honoring life by supporting each other, then doing what it takes to live up to one's potential. Best efforts are sometimes not enough when coveted hopes are misaligned with the particular talents required. A disappointing realization that, when honestly assessed, often becomes a springboard to an even higher calling. Father Nicanor Austriaco earned a PhD in biology from MIT before becoming a Dominican priest and a doctor of sacred theology. As a Providence College professor of theology and biology, he has often been the bearer of bad news.
It's tragic. I've had to tell students that they'll never become a doctor. They'll never become a surgeon. But I don't stop there. I tell them that there's an adventure waiting for them, that what they have to do now is they have to discern their vocation. They have to figure out why God is saying no here. And he's saying no to them here because there's a big giant yes around the corner, and so much of it is figuring that out.
a grateful hymn for those willing to risk failure while attempting to expand their range. Professor of Music T.J. Harper welcomes anybody, regardless of their talent, to participate in his various choral groups.
It is a wonderful thing to see them succeed, and even to see them in the moment support one another when they know they've made a mistake, when they know something wasn't quite right, and you feel that energy. It's almost like a surge, like, okay, now we have to try even harder.
Finding the strength to pick yourself up when the burden seems too much. Having the grace to be thankful for the opportunity to be tested and to make it through. Miguel Bermudez, a business management major, grew up in Houston after his parents had left Mexico for a better life in America. In his free time, he teaches English to the school's Spanish-speaking cafeteria workers. When Miguel was 2.5 years old, he was diagnosed with leukemia.
And I was under chemotherapy for about 2.5 years. And when I was close to 6 years old, I became cancer-free, thank God. Any little moment, I'm eternally grateful for. When I pray before I fall asleep, that's the first thing that I say. Thank you, God, for giving me a second chance to live.
For Arlene Baez, the struggle was brought on by external forces during her junior year abroad in Paris. She was interning for the French Ministry of the Interior when terrorist attacks killed 130 people. Arlene's passion for living was shaken, but through help, she has gained a new source of strength.
Just the way that the school has handled just supporting me with everything that I've had to deal with, and it's a little emotional, but it's just rewarding when people understand and people are there and people are listening and people care, And I wouldn't have never had any of those opportunities without being here.
Francisco Oyer Garcia came to Providence College from Puerto Rico, a long way to travel for someone facing mobility challenges and other physical issues stemming from a rare genetic disease. What he learned in 4 years, and what others learned from him about persistence, determination, and attitude will not be soon forgotten.
It's not that I don't want sympathy or I don't want empathy. The thing that I hate with an absolute passion is pity. People shouldn't pity me because I just live life and I live it differently. And to me, I don't have a disability. I merely have a challenge. And as long as I continue to see it that way, there's every single opportunity open to me in this life. And what I've learned is that I can do a lot of things by myself, but if I'm willing to take help from others and be willing to make myself vulnerable, as I have done, one of the things is whenever I'm around Providence College, I'll be rolling up a hill and one of my friends will come up running behind me and take the handles and just start pushing me up.
I think that's a big part of just how close everyone is and how you just want to make each other feel welcome and happy here.
This is the family that you become a part of almost immediately.
The first time I stepped foot on campus, after I was hired, I'm not kidding, every single person I passed, they looked me right in the eye, they smiled, and they said hello.
There is a spirit here. Can I define it? I don't know, but it's damn good. Damn good.
Providence College was, is, and will always be special to me because, it's where I grew. I went into college as a 16-year-old. And I had a priest named Father Schneider, who the rink is named after, who sort of took me under his wing, and I think helped me along at a time, where I was so young. And I felt then, and I always felt that when I was in the position that I would be in, that it was important for me to help people because I don't know where, in what direction I would have been if it wasn't for Father Schneider.
Where would we be? Where would they have been without the guidance of another, earlier person of influence? Someone lighting the way. someone committed to the truth, or in Latin, Veritas, a word seen all over the Providence College campus, on a crosswalk, in a window, above a door, on a light fixture. Omnipresent reminders of an ideal to strive for, but also, in a more sobering light, provocative suggestions to accept the truth about our own failings. Like many other institutes of higher learning, Providence College fell into a pattern of attracting and accepting too many students of similar ethnic, economic, and social backgrounds. Progress has been made, and in recent years, PC's sociological mix better reflects the shifting cultural patterns of American society. But there is more work still to be done.
It takes time. It's one of the reasons why I came back to work in the first place here, because if you keep saying to yourself often enough, why don't we, or they should, then why not be a part of it as to why we don't do it, or why shouldn't we do it?
We've done well with increasing diversity, but now we need to work really hard to make everybody feel like they're included here on our campus. And that's what we're working hard with the students to do, to get better and to be even more inclusive than we have been.
It's not necessarily just we're going to have this group of people, this group of people, and this group of people, and all think in one way. I think what it is, it's more of, having different groups of people, but, accepting and being comfortable with different views, different, sides of the story.
Satyam Kanal came to Providence College from Nepal, bringing with him a flexible worldview shaped by his belief in Hinduism.
Ever since I've gotten here, the overwhelming feeling of welcome and helpfulness that I've felt here, I've just felt at home. Like right since I landed, it's just been like, I'm here, and it just feels right.
Every time you're exposed to new people, you listen to their story, you listen to their beliefs, that only affirms, changes, makes you grow. And it's all about growth.
Peace I leave you, my peace I give you.
There is, of course, no wavering about PC's identity as a Catholic college, a Catholicism rooted in participatory acts of compassion. As a PC student, Dave O'Connor, class of 2014, co-founded a program to distribute surplus cafeteria food.
And we act in a way which Jesus acted in the Bible when people said, I need to be healed, can you heal me? Jesus didn't pull out a form and say, what's your income statement? How many kids do you have? And all these questions. Instead, there was a need, and he responded with love.
Gospel messages witnessed and absorbed firsthand.
And I think that's the beauty of Pope Francis right now. He has struck such a resonant chord with so many people, and he's done it by just exuding the gospel of mercy. One of the first acts that generated so much publicity for him was when he picked up a child who happened to be the son of a Providence College professor in Rome that year. And Francis picked up his son, Dominic, and hugged him and embraced him and gave him a kiss. And it hit the world. Here's the Pope stopping the Pope-mobile and picking up a child and embracing the child. And that says more than an encyclical, because it moves people. And I think what Francis has done in a beautiful way is focus on the gospel of mercy.
Dominic's father, Dr. Paul Gondro, a Providence College professor of theology, is well-versed in biblical examples of mercy. Not that his students, or any PC students in any classroom, are shown much mercy if they fail to meet the school's rigorous academic standards. In their first 2 years at Providence College, all students, regardless of their major, must successfully complete an intense Development of Western Civilization program, exposing them to the intellectual and political movements, cultural advancements, and significant events articulated through the ages by history's greatest writers, philosophers, theologians, artists, and other influential thinkers. This commitment to liberal arts comes at a time when many other colleges and universities are narrowing the focus of their course loads to train their students for very specific career tasks. A short-sighted approach, according to Dr. Joan Branham, Associate Dean of the Providence College School of Arts and Sciences and Professor of Art History.
If you ask employers
they will always, in surveys, say these are the skills that we're looking for. They really want good writers. They often will say, we will teach you the technology here. We will teach you what we do. But can you write? Can you speak? Can you present? Can you problem solve? That's what they're looking for.
Dean of the School of Business, Dr. Sylvia Maxfield, knows from her work experience in the upper reaches of the financial world that a broadened mind is a better mind, which is why she is such an enthusiastic supporter of the liberal arts requirement for every business student.
There is no business school like ours in the United States, where our students are taking 4 semesters of Western Civ. I just believe that a broad education and understanding of politics and economics and philosophy and sociology and all of these things, history, I believe that that makes you better able to be successful in business. And it's all about problem solving, pivoting, being agile, being able to look at vast amounts of data and synthesize. How do you learn those skills? Well, you learn those skills in the Civ classroom where you're talking about the Iliad.
Aspirations for advancement and growth, fueling a passion for improvement that just keeps building and building. At a college dramatically transformed under the leadership of Father Shanley. His most noticeable new projects being the Arthur and Patricia Ryan Center for Business Studies and the Huxley Avenue annexation, uniting the lower and upper campuses. What lies on the horizon? Where does Providence College go from here?
We're producing people to live meaningful lives. Work is part of a meaningful life. You know that. And we want every person who comes here to find meaning in their lives. But if your life is measured just by how much you earn, then you haven't understood what the measure of a good life really is.
How can a person be so dramatically changed in 4 short years? And how can those who are leaving adequately describe how they were changed to those just arriving? The incoming freshmen and their families are hoping the next 4 years will go wonderfully, that the times will be joyful, the road smooth, the setbacks and sorrows few. The departing seniors and their families had those same thoughts 4 years earlier, but now are grateful for the moments they hoped to avoid. The trying times, the tough times, the adversity, the misfortune, the failure, the struggle to improve, to develop, to change, to learn, to realize in the most difficult moments that this is what Providence College is all about. This is where they met the people who inspired them to keep believing, keep ascending, knowing that a fall would be painful, but well worth the risk and the effort. They come carrying more and more every year, the bountiful comforts of home and then some. What hasn't changed in 100 years is what they will take away upon graduation, packaged concisely into a small phrase serving as a motto for the coming year's centennial celebration. Values that endure.
And my God, you know, it's just 3 words. And yet when you think about it, how more profound could it be?
Ask Francisco Oyer Garcia or anyone in attendance at the commencement ceremonies for the class of 2016, where Francisco made good on a 4-year pledge to somehow find the strength to lift himself out of the wheelchair and walk the final steps of his magna cum laude journey. An extraordinary scene that lifted his parents and an arena full of people brought to their feet. Francisco's incredulous reaction to the spontaneous show of support said everything about the spiritual power and protective care of Providence.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, it's the only college named after God. He can't lead us too far out of his sight because we named our school after him.
What will become of you? A century of evidence suggests a person of great character, intellectual depth, and creative wisdom,
everybody here is destined to be great because we have the opportunities to be. We're allowed to be great. You know, this is a place of greatness.
The opportunities awaiting Miguel Bermudez were not made available to his parents, Jesus and Cecilia. The economic realities in Mexico forcing both of them to go to work before finishing middle school. This is why they came to America and became citizens. This is why they worked long hours and saved what they could. Still wearing his graduation gown, Miguel, his mother, father, and sister Kimberly returned to the campus for one last emotional look at the college that has changed his life. The college that began its life as the educational savior of immigrant families from a different era.
Me sentí orgullosa.
Proud.
Y bendecida por Dios.
Blessed by God.
De ver lo que con su ayuda pudiste lograr.
To see what with God's help I was able to accomplish.
He has something he wished for years, and finally it's his turn, the better days.
You gave something to the school and the school gave something to you, right?
School gave me a new home. I gave the school a piece of my heart. It's man, to be able to say that Providence, New England was my home for 4 years. Oh my goodness, it's just something that I got so much more than what I expected. And all praise to God because it's beautiful. It's Providence. It's Providence. It's Veritas, the truth.
You belong today.